If you can stop talking for 10 seconds, that would be fantastic. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
Hey, Biff, if George Washington was alive today, I don't think he'd be able to throw a silver dollar across the Potomac.
Is it because he's in a coffin?
Because, A, but the judges were going with the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. The dollar doesn't go as far as it used to.
Okay.
So, Biff, why did they call Lincoln Honest Abe?
What did they call Lincoln Honest Abe, Jacques?
Well, that's what his campaign button said.
Yeah.
His campaign button said, could use another box. That one was for Joe. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Carnival Personnel. This is your good old pal, Jacques.
This is Biff, who doesn't know why he's here.
And Joe is with us, not just in spirit. His camera went away. It says his name on the screen. Unlike my dad, I'm hoping Joe will come back.
Hey, everybody.
So,
Joe, pal, look at my new house that I don't own because I'm a loser who didn't plan accordingly.
Hey, it's happened. Look, when I was your age, I didn't have a house either. And technically, I still don't. Everything's in her name.
Yeah, somebody else owns it.
Yeah. Everything. So we just recorded next week's sideshow with a comedian, Praise EJ. Just an absolute hysterical kid. I'm looking forward to that dropping. You can find him on Instagram at I am praiseworthy. And he is. You guys had a fun chat, right?
Oh, it's great. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I will say, I will vouch that you're going to get 20% more guests on this than you did last podcast.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Biff. I think that's your new name.
The bump.
The guardrails. Biff's name is now the guardrail. You know what? A lot of crap going on in the news. It's not all good. We are going to start on a downer.
All right.
Last week, I had to help Joe move the Lyceum.
It's so hard to say goodbye.
It was not easy. It was not easy, and it was really fucking hard. I haven't worked that. I truly do not remember the last time I physically worked that hard, and it's like one of those things like in a mobster movie where they drove you out to the desert and made you dig your own grave and then fucking killed you. I had to take my beloved museum. I said mine. We'll say ours. Like the way I won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots.
Yeah,
Congratulations, by the way.
But to be fair, considering how much you back check, I'm not so sure how much effort it really was. It's kind of hard to tell. So
Hey, me with the puck on my stick in the offensive zone is all the fucking back checking you need.
Yeah,
anyway, but it was physically hard. I posted a picture, and I will repost it this week after this podcast. In the baker's dozen years Joe called like that place home, I never exited the Lyceum via the bulkhead.
Bulkhead.
And for good reason, because it was not OSHA approved.
Seriously, Biff, did you see the picture I posted or I sent it to the group chat?
Yeah.
He referred to it as the Tim Burton staircase. And Joe has his way with, like, painting a picture, his prose, his colloquialisms. I can't even say that. But when he called him that, and I looked at the stairs, and I looked at Joe, and I looked at the stairs, I'm like, all right, you're never going to say anything funnier. That. And sadly, that was the only way that you could really get these boxes out. And it was, if you were working from the top step down, it was like missing a step. So it was 2 steps. Then it was a step and a half. And then it was a quarter of a step. And then it was a step, just an average step, but on a very loose board.
I kept saying to Jacques, watch that first, second, third, and fourth step. Lulu.
And then when you get to the top, you think you make, and look, for an old fuck like me to be carrying even a piece of paper and make that step, pretty impressive. But then there was this like little guard runner where the bulkhead door is shut and it kind of locks, with that. Once I did, I just caught my toe on it. The box of gold bullions, or as we call them, the formal edition master tapes from the first sketch comedy show that Joe started that I ended up working on episode 3 on, just go flying all over his backyard. Did I do that? It was the most physical labor I've done in forever. It was soul crushing at the same time. One of the best days I had. It just was nothing but incoherent. 2
days. Like Jacques actually showed up the day that the movers were there. So he was just there as like dancing monkey boy. Like he had like no reason to be there physically except to just sort of, bring some levity to the situation. And then the next day he came back, same time. And it was just me unloading my my video game collection from the basement of the house that I used to rent for 12 years.
Yeah.
And it was, there's a silver lining. But I do want to profusely thank Jacques for his help, because without him, I probably would, have 2 orphan children right now. No, sorry, not orphan, because my wife would have been alive, I guess. Or no, she would have died from the grief. I don't know, without analogies going. But what I'm saying is,
you avoided having to have your children relive Jacques' childhood pain, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And so I immediately, like after, I treated him to a lunch, essentially. That was like my only form of payment. At the end of the move, I asked him, like, so what's the crate to podcast exchange rate? Like, how many podcasts now do I owe Jacques for him having to help me move, like, literally like 12 crates out of my basement?
But again, honestly, management a while ago, and I said this to Joe while we were moving, and it was at least 50 trips up that rickety staircase getting out of there. And Joe, and as hard as it was for me, Joe had the this is going pile, this is the maybe pile, this is the I shouldn't be fucking taking this, but I'm going to pile, and this is the donate pile. It was a hard thing. He had one Sophie's Choice after another. But recently, management had the epiphany. We see, and I don't know if you guys were, with different people in your lives where you actually been by somebody's bedside as they're fading and they're kind of rambling to themselves. And it's these non sequitur, unconnected stories that just make no sense. My management figured out a little while ago. She's like, those are inside jokes with you and your loved ones. Like Biff, you and I have, honestly, I just tweeted it out last week. Otisburg will always be our thing,
right, yeah.
And Joe and I, because like since '94, we've been doing the most stupid stuff in the name of comedy. Just driving across country, listening to start to finish the National Lampoon Radio Hour entire collection.
And then I woke up.
No, that's a line from it, and literally,
I don't know where I am.
If you got the living cast members of the National Lampoon Radio Hour and had them listen to Joe and I, they wouldn't get half the references from their own. At it again. And then Ellen and I, we have, and I mean this, you and your significant others, you and your kids, you have these movies that are yours. You have these moments that are yours. And with management and I'm dead serious. The people who worked on Sunny with a Chance of Meatballs, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Megamind, and Monsters vs. Aliens, if they had any idea how much we have these little things between us where we say and you know, management the other day, like, you know, we were sitting on the couch and she accidentally like just smacked me. Like look, she accidentally hits me all the time. The cops have been here.
It was a Freudian smack.
We've got and there's a line from Sunny, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is like, it's okay, it's just pain. And it fucking hurt when she hit me, but I said it with that cadence. And oh my God, the next morning, she was in the kitchen getting ready to go, and she played it through her head again how I had said that in the moment. And she's like, it took her 5 minutes to compose herself. So she figured out that that's what, those were. So Joe and I spent 2 days.
Yeah. I just want to say, can you turn off your background? Because you literally keep disappearing like your father. And I never thought I'd say this, but I want to see more Jacques. I want to see that pretty face because you keep dipping in and out. There you are.
Yeah. Okay, so we're up to 3. My dad leaving references. I don't. Where's the record? I have the book somewhere.
I'm going for 10, baby.
But seriously, and I told Joe like the first day when I was going home, I'm like, dude, you have to drink a lot of water, take ibuprofen now, and I'm dead serious. Drink, eat some mustard, like just eat whatever because that helps with, not like cramping up but I'm telling you, as much as it was backbreaking and sad, it was 2 days of Joe and I just not having a conversation, just one reference point and I'm going to say, a third of the stuff not video game related in Joe's basement. Somehow either we bought it someplace or he was there or he took a picture and was buying it or I gave him at one point. And so it was heartbreaking, physically demanding, and just so much fun. I will say I did help a lot that first day. I made a couple trips, but at the same time, Joe pulled a fast one on his old buddy Jacques. Joe told me that my bike was stolen, that somebody took it to the basement of the Alamo. And that's a reference for us. Joe asks if I could run and go get a case of water. Biff, if I'm at your house and you ask me to run a case of water, is that really a big deal?
Well, we don't buy water.
No, but if you said it's not a big deal, right? No. You wouldn't feel bad sending me to. So I run out to get and I'm walking through the store. And
by the way, I wanted to get a case of water so I could have water to give to the movers.
To the movers, right. So I'm like, okay, here are the real heroes of the day, and these guys were fucking rock stars. Holy shit. The shit they move. Anyways, I'm walking the store. I see like these jugs of water, like gallon jugs. I ask some dumb pimply faced kid. He's like, oh, maybe I have some at back. And he's like, he never shows back up like my dad. And then I'm like, and then somebody working for like Pepsi or who was stocking the shelves who doesn't work there goes, oh, dude, you're not allowed to sell cases of water in Arlington. You know how some places you can't have, single-use plastic bags, Biff?
Right.
There's a town ordinance that you cannot sell cases of water. So I literally walked around that store. There's no basement in the Alamo.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, but you came back with like these big, like 40s. Like I poured one up for my homies.
Of water, 40s of water,
yes.
And then, but
there was a liquor store next door.
Like everybody makes fun of stupid California laws, but I think most of the laws in California are actually pretty okay. Whereas I go to like places in like these older places, and those laws are just whacked.
Like what about South Carolina where you can't sell they can only sell like nips in bars or serve nips?
Right.
Hey, I'm right here.
It's 2023, Joe.
Gosh darn it! I'm sorry. I'd like to. Hi, my name is Joe, and I'd like to apologize.
Oh no, you did it. You got canceled. You canceled yourself, and now you're uncanceled.
Okay, great.
You're like Night Court. You're back, and maybe even better than ever.
And half of me is dead.
So it is funny. So Joe, he's in a new place. He has a lot of stairs to get up. And the second day, after like the second trip, I could only get up 2 flights. And I'm like, can I leave this here? And Joe's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Yes, you can leave it.
I'd forgotten that there were 2 extra sets of stairs that you had to maneuver to get to where my bedroom was going to be.
Yeah, there's like a second living room. There's 2 bedrooms up there and a second living room, and it's the old staircases. So like you take 4 or 5 steps and it's a turn, and 4 or 5 steps and it's a turn in these big boxes. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And then it's funny. It's like the second day we went and we got one of his kids from school. It was like, oh, thank God. Like just having that hour break driving there and back. It was like this respite. And it's funny because I make a trip and I'm carrying stuff up, and his son just got home from school. I'm carrying it, and it's Joe. He had a lamp. Me. I had a lamp. And he's like, "Oh, that goes in my bedroom." And I just held it out, like, "Okay, you're gonna come get this because I can't move another inch." Like I would happily do it an hour ago, 2 hours ago, but at this point in time,
I've never felt so young being next to Jacques. Like in that state of being, because I was going up and down the stairs. I was huffing and puffing. I'm an out of shape middle-aged guy, but I'm a 45-year-old middle-aged guy. So I got a few years on me.
I would make a couple trips up, and I'd be like, "Yep, I'm gonna play 1 round of a Candy Crush, and then I'm gonna go make a couple more trips." But it's like, I was doing that for you. For you to have to explain to my children at the wake,
Right.
but it was sad, but so much fun. Like, it was physically exhausting. It was soul crushing sad, but maybe.
But, I mean, the real crates we moved were the friends we made along the way. Right?
So my stand-up update, again, we talked to Praise next week. He's a kid that I see on a regular basis, and he is and I'm not to say that there's a couple more people I want to have on. There's one kid who might be coming up who's I'm just gonna say it, special. Like he is somebody is like, oh fuck, if he stays the course, he's going to do something. But praise is in that category. He really, really is. But my thing, I'm all focused. In 3 days from this podcast dropping, I'm doing my second real show at Mondo Comedy, and it's a 12 to 15 minute set. And again, apologies.
And a 60 to 75 minute drive.
No. Luckily, this is in Lowell. This is like,
okay.
And it's a nice place, and it's good and it's bad because I didn't get a chance to tell anybody when I did the last show. It happened. Like, my buddy, I was talking to Greg, the guy who runs it, who's been on the podcast, Greg Bogus.
Right. We're bogus, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, are you doing the show?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to miss this. I'm going to go do open mic in New Hampshire tonight." And he's like, "Yeah, come here and do 5-7 minutes." I'm like,
Okay.
Oh, okay. And like I said, I fucked up and did well enough where he's like, "Yeah, come back." He doesn't want like the same people, every month, and I get it. So it's like, he goes, "Yeah, why don't you come back in February and do 12, 15 minutes?" And so, unfortunately, now people know, and I have actual friends coming, and my sister and her husband came last time, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring a couple of my cousins and stuff like that." And then and now I'm going through the list. It's like, do I want to tell this joke about this in front of them, type? But but because I know I've been doing this for the last few weeks, so I had about a 25-minute set that I was whittling down, and I was kind of hoping other stuff had hit over the last couple of weeks, but unfortunately, some of the stuff that's been getting the bigger, better laughs are the stuff that I kind of don't want to tell in front of my wife's friends, but And then Joe, he did. He said
You
it like
should preface every one of those bad jokes with, here's a joke my stupid friend Joe told me. I really don't want to say it, but you know what?
So when we talk in a couple weeks, I will have, you guys would have seen it. I will post it, but that's my thing. Let's see. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to apologize first. When I worked for the arena football team here, I had this amazing team around me. It was a shitty situation, but it was great. And I told the kids this who worked with me at the time. You know, I was their pseudo boss, but I don't even like saying that because we were completely a team.
Right.
All of them except this kid Donny has come on the podcast. You know, and I told like Rodney came to the Lyceum. He's a huge, probably, I don't know if he's a bigger game show fan than Joe, but it's a fucking neck and neck race.
We need to have Rodney back on.
We definitely want. It's honestly, Biff, if you go back and listen to the episode, he does have a voice. Look, I'm an atheist, but he has the voice of God. Like his, you know, he's a PA announcer. We had Matt, you know, Mahogany Matt, who I'm doing stand up with, who's like, you know, who lives in a funeral home his whole life. He was on, you know, of course, just one of the greatest guys I know. Price is Right. AJ Price, you know, he another kid who came to the Lyceum and was one person.
A picture of AJ.
Yeah, I just posted that. Right. And so I had this wonderful team, and I've told them, it's like, okay, a couple things. First of all, if you guys continue to work in sports, you will never work for a worse organization. Hey, you got it. Biff, hand to Batman. I'm not kidding. I've in the middle of it. It wasn't in retrospect. In the middle of it, I'm like, if you guys get through this season. Second, because the organization is so fucked up and there's no management structure outside of me, you guys are getting to do stuff you want to do at a well-run team, like the ECHL hockey team that shares the building. You would have to intern and then move up. You want to be doing this job for 2 or 3 seasons, let alone doing the 2 jobs that you're doing that you want to do either one for 3 seasons. You're not only doing them, we're dependent on you to do them, and we're dependent on you to do them well, to get the show on Nesson, to get the Jumbotron working. So these kids walked away with real experience. And here's the other thing. We're all on a texter. I talk to AJ on a regular basis. You know, Rodney, Matt, and I and Donny are on a regular text thread. Not as much as, you know, you, Biff, and Joe and the hockey guys, but a daily thing, you know, back and forth. Well, Donny reached out to me a while ago, about 2 years, 3 years before COVID. His baseball team, the Worcester Bravehearts he works for, hosted a job fair for high school seniors and college kids in sports marketing and management, and also had, like, you know, 15, 20 local minor league teams and the Celtics and the Patriots. Like, it's a job fair thing. And it shut down. Cool. It shut down because of COVID. And so Donny, who's now the assistant GM, like, dude, he's 24, maybe. Okay. 24, and he put it together this year. But he ran the whole over 700 attendees.
Nice.
And he put it, you know, it's, you know, I commented on LinkedIn. I said a couple nice things. He asked me to come. He wanted me to be on a panel when he first asked me, and I didn't know my travel schedule, but I'm like, if I'm in town, I will be there. I actually brought my oldest kid, who's like 15. He was 10 when I ran the football team, and he liked it. He, you know, he was a run. He actually was a PA. I gave him $50 a game. He knows these guys. These guys love him. They've always, but I wanted him to see what this is about. And it was, I have no blood relation or by marriage is Donny in any way connected to me. Donny is introduced and gets up to the mic to start this whole thing, and honestly, I'm welling up. I'm not kidding. Like to have seen, you know, when we hired a person to do the in studio host stuff, and after the first game, that guy called and says, "I can't do it. This isn't me. I don't have the chops." There's a kid in the hallway watching one of the vendors' merch tables. They were one of those Paul Lagua maybe signed merchandise. Right. You know, maybe it was Julie Edelman who signed it. Maybe it was Paul Lagua.
Maybe it was Julia Edelman. Who knows?
But this guy had like tangential connections to old Pats, and it's like, I will bring this Patriot player here if I can set up my merch stand. So it was so Donny is watching this guy's fucking table.
Right.
So the kid says, look, maybe talk to that kid. So Donny is a sophomore in college at that point, but he's also 4 years into working for the Worcester Bravehearts. As a sophomore and junior, when the team came, he went to the team and said, how can I work here? What can I do? Yeah. Your games aren't broadcasted anywhere. Can I broadcast them on Facebook? And the owner's like, yeah, why not, kid? That's fucking great.
Yeah.
By the time he graduates high school, he's running the social media page for the team.
Nice.
He a legit, not a summer internship. Oh, isn't this nice? So by the time as a freshman at Babson College, he went to a job fair. The guy at the Celtics had absolutely nothing, but was impressed with Donny and says, look, it's not a paid job, but do you want to sell 50-50 raffle tickets at the game? And Donny was smart enough to say, that's 41 home games that I get to see the Celtics play for free. Yeah. And he lives in Boston because that's where the school. And so he's worked for the Celtics all these years. He works for the Bravehearts. So by the time I have my first phone call with them, I'm like, yeah, this kid's going to be fucking fine. And everything, again, because the thing was so fucked up, he started as a host. By the fourth game, him and AJ Price were running the team. I showed up. I sat next to Rodney. I had the timing sheet. It's like I had the reads in front of me. I'm like, I had the headphones, so I was talking to the Nesson guys, the radio guys, the Jumbotron guys, everything else. And we would have 200 kids coming in and out of the tunnel on the field for this or that, or this game or that game. It was all AJ. It was all Donny. And so here it is a few years later, Donny's running this job fair at Worcester State University, 700 attendees, like 36 schools and professional teams, again, from the Celtics to the MLS team, the Revolution, the Patriots, and other teams in his baseball league from the other side of the state were sending recruiting, for summer jobs and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there listening to Donny and honestly just trying to hold it together. I just felt so proud and just so fucking happy for him.
That's fantastic, right?
And I did.
Now we don't even need to have Donny on the podcast.
No, why? Why is he the only one who, like, we had Matt, we had AJ, everybody but I brought my oldest who's 15.
Yeah, because he's too busy to do,
right.
He's doing real work.
So here's the fucked up thing. So I see him, and by the way, I posted it. It's the first time when I lived in Qatar, I had a meeting at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Doha, Qatar. And that's the first time I wore a tie. At that point, I hadn't worn a tie in my youngest kid's lifetime. And I remember coming out of the bedroom wearing a suit, and he's 6. He's 5. And he's like, Papa, is that your Bruce Wayne costume? And that's when I won life. That's when I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to pull the card to the bridge embankment. He literally, and so I wear a tie. My oldest guy wore a tie, and we went to this. And when we checked in, Johnny's like, oh, everything's at that table. They're waiting for you, the VIP table. I go over, and it's a kid who works for him. Donny did a podcast a year ago. And he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're Jacques. You did Donny's podcast. You talked about, and the kid talked to me for like 15 minutes. And I'll tell you, there was about 5 or 6 times people who recognized me, pulled me aside, or different owners of teams who I've talked with or worked with in the past. And it was really great. It's the first time that my kid got to kind of see me in a real work environment. They see me at home.
Right.
They see, like they don't remember, like when you and I took them to see Rat at the NASCAR thing. Like, there's great photos of that with you and the band and the boys, Biff.
No, I didn't go to that one. No,
you did.
The one that you took me was actually Billy Ray was the one that I went to.
Oh, right. Billy Ray. And so, but you've been to they've been to all that. They don't remember. They don't remember that. They do remember the candy cart that got wheeled into the VIP car, and they're like, and
he should.
And again, Tristan's like 5, and he's like, "Can we have any money?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it's free." what can we have? And when the woman's like, whatever you want, sweetheart, it's like,
I gotta go.
fuck. Yeah, seriously, thank you, Joe. So, like I said, I already posted it. I'll repost it. But what Donny did, and honestly, it's just, and he profusely thanked me, on social media and stuff. It's like, dude, I had one phone call. I'm like, this kid's going to make me look good. And I stayed the fuck out of the way. I did nothing except, sure, you can take this shit work off my shoulders and go do it. And he did it. And honestly, where he is now, where he's going to be, truly. And it was great it was great. And then it's funny. So there's a question and answer. And the keynote speaker is the athletic director at Holy Cross. And there's kind of a lull in the question. I raised my hand, and Donny came over because, he's moderating and hands me the mic. And I asked a question that kept the conversation going. And as he's answering, Donny's like, "Oh, you just bailed me out." I said, "No, dude, this." And then great, my oldest kid, he's like, he gets to see. It's like, oh, right, he's not just a piece of shit. And then it was funny because I mentioned something, about cover letters, and then this sweetheart, this girl comes over and she's like, yeah, she's in that space where I don't have much on a resume. I'm trying to get jobs in the sports world, but it's the whole catch-22, and it's like, and how important are cover letters? And I gave her a piece of advice at cover letters, and I told them later it was a little different than what the keynote speaker had thrown out. And I said, whether she takes my advice or not, when she writes a cover letter in 20 years, she's going to remember what I said. Because I told her, it's like, I've never not got an interview for a job that I applied for because my cover letter, no matter what job, the last 40 years has simply said, I would shovel roadkill for the opportunity to talk to you about this. And but everybody else is throwing pros and your organization, whatever. What's going to make them turn the page? It's like, okay, this and literally, he didn't do it intentionally, but another podcast guest, Chris Barrican, the Carnival Personnel Resident Evil senior Resident Evil correspondent, when he sent a cover letter when he was 18, and it was just so, it wasn't written in crayon, but maybe it was. We're like, fuck it. We're having this guy in because this is going to be a ride. And then, 20 years later, I'm still working with the kid. So anyways, I babbled enough. Donny has to come on the podcast. I'm not a baseball fan, or I'm not a Red Sox fan. I'm a baseball fan. I will literally drive and pay to go see single A Worcester Worcester Bravehearts, rather that than free box tickets to Fenway to see. And I'm not kidding. Given the option, one or the other, I'm going to drive to Worcester and watch, the Worcester Bravehearts.
Breaking news. This is breaking news. Jacques has not stopped babbling. There will be more babbling.
This is true. Well, I didn't cut him off because it was a nice thing about somebody else. It's not something other whatever stuff. So I wasn't let him. I did go ahead and let him go for a little while, but yeah, it's been a while.
Here we go, Joe. The Last of Us, go.
The Last of Us. What a great video game series, and I like it. It's 2 games, and there's a new HBO show that's up to episode, I think, 6 by the time this drops. And The Last of Us is a tale about a man who has to deal with a pandemic that strikes in the year 2003. This fungus infests the food supply, and people ingest it. And when they do, it turns them into these monsters. The fungus basically takes over the body, and
nice.
Then and then they infect other people by biting them like a zombie. And it's chaotic at the beginning. You see him and his family life, and then you see 20 years later and how he's surviving with his new companion, a guy named Joel, and played by Pedro Pascal, aka the Mandalorian, or Narcos, if you remember Narcos.
Yep.
Great show. No spoilers, but episode 3 will make you weep openly. and you will live.
I did see a lot of that on the socials where like that episode 3 had a lot of reaction. It's like, yeah, I don't have HBO Max. I don't know if I want to pay for HBO Max, but you know.
Well, hey, lucky for you, HBO Max just went up an extra $1 a month. So
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so now's a great time. You know,
Yeah,
buy
and-
high. Yeah, buy high.
and they're cutting stuff like you've never, like they've cut like, stuff that they used to offer. Half of
Oh.
that stuff's gone now. So don't worry. You'll,
Oh.
half like the DC stuff is gone. Half of the Looney Tunes stuff
Is
is
that what you call less is more?
Yes.
You're getting less and paying more.
Right.
So,
But
Joe,
yeah. What about The Last of Us, Jacques? Did you have something to say about that?
no, but I wanted you
Yeah.
to talk about. Is this, and honestly, is this the first video game adaptation that is a home run, like start to finish so far?
I mean, it's very good. I mean, it helps that the creator of the video game is basically the video game was just a medium for the creator. I'm blanking on his name. Neil something.
Neil Simon.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Neil Simon.
Good old Neil Simon. He
Yeah.
went from the
Odd Couple
to this.
yeah.
I mean, he basically wanted. If you play the video games, it's basically like a TV series, or like a limited type series. That whole storytelling method was in the video games to begin with. So this is more of like a pared down, slightly altered Reader's Digest version of the video game series, but they're hitting all the beats well. It's well acted. It's masterfully written. Yeah, but as far as your question, is this like the first video game adaptation of the home run?
So you're saying it's better than Mario with
Well,
the,
but
Well, we don't
you
know
know,
what the Super Mario Brothers movie is like.
but the fans, it's in the high 90s on Rotten Tomato, and it's funny because I love the show Mythic Quest on Apple TV Plus. It's based on. It's essentially it's The Office inside World of Warcraft. And this past season, one of the big storylines is they got an offer to do a $200 million adaptation of the game for a movie. And the guy who created the games is like, no, like that kills games. And the whole joke, and it's true. It's like you might make a series that people who don't play the game love. But the people who play the game, your bread and butter, are like, fuck this, I'm done with the franchise. You sold out, you killed your soul, I'm not coming back. I'm going to whatever.
I guess because The Last of Us was unique in that it was essentially a movie in the form of a video game. That sort of lent itself to make it easier to transition into like a TV series. Whereas like you have a game like Super Mario Brothers where it's abstract and it has multiple iterations over decades, and then like well, the Super Mario Brothers movie from 1993, that was like infamously bad because Nintendo didn't know they didn't know what they were doing as far as
such a waste of great talent in Bob Hoskins, right? It was Bob Hoskins, right?
Right. Yeah. Bob Hoskins was drunk on set most of the time because
as he should have been.
Because there are stories about how he and John Leguizamo, who played Luigi in the movie, basically like they filmed a lot of that movie was shot in like a warehouse in North Carolina in the middle of summer.
Oh, geez.
And it was, there's documentaries about that movie.
And we did a whole episode on it. We did a whole episode.
But my point is that you can take an abstract movie or an abstract video game like that and turn it into whatever. If you're not familiar with the source material or have no reverence for the source material, whereas The Last of Us is like, okay, it started out as like a kind of like a movie or a TV series in the video game format, and now we're just taking it out of the player's hands and then just telling a more compelling version of the story. By the way, if we're talking about video game stuff real quick, see the trailer for the Tetris movie that's coming out on Apple TV.
Are you kidding?
No, there's a movie about the making
of
Tetris, but it takes place in Cold War era Russia, and it's about a Swedish like a Swedish marketing man.
Chef? Oh.
Yes, the Swedish chef. Before this guy starts IKEA, he decides to take Tetris from. No, it tells a story of like how they basically markets Tetris from the the Soviet Union. This one programmer from the Soviet Union, and marketing it to the U.S. and Japan and the world basically.
All right.
But it plays out like an action movie. Like
no,
the trailer, it looks really cool.
I will check that. I will definitely. But I my family, other than me, started watching that because my oldest kid, that was one of his favorite games like 2 years ago. So mom carved our time, and the little guy watched it. And they got to episode 3 or 4, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll watch it. So the other night, I ended up watching episode 1, and then episode 5 dropped, and they're like, oh, we'll wait for you to catch up, and I'm like, nah. I'll figure it out. And I haven't seen 2, 3, and 4, and I don't know if I want to because
just watch the fucking thing.
I know.
Just watch it.
Look, I remember like last year, the little guy and his mom watched all of Squid Game, and I watched 70% of Squid Game. I couldn't take certain things. I can't take certain things. Yeah. But one night she carried him to bed, and he was just soup. It was. I don't know if you guys watched all the Squid Game, but
yeah, absolutely.
Marbles.
Yeah. It was a Marbles episode, and he was just. I mean, honestly, inconsolable. And the way Joe talked about episode 3, I don't know if management can physically carry me from the couch upstairs and deal with that.
It's a beautiful type of cry. It's not a what a
okay.
It's just like the way that they took the hour and 17 minutes and just made it like, you're introduced to these characters, and then by the end you don't want you're completely invested in these characters.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I on that recommendation, we already talked a little bit about stand-up, but guys, I'm a lot more like Rodney Dangerfield than you think. First of all, got into stand-up comedy very, very late. Secondly, no respect. Third,
you wear a bathrobe with no underwear around the house.
And fourth, I'm going back to school. I'm going to ULowell next Friday, or this Friday after this drops. I don't want to brag. I got into ULowell. Management opens the National Grid bill a couple weeks ago, and there's like, hey, we're looking for people to do a research study on this day because you're a National Grid.
Does this smell like gas to you?
Right. Thank you. So she tells me, it's like, oh, you might get a text message. I signed you up to go do this thing.
Nice.
And the guy called, and he called right when Joe and I were unloading the windowless van at the first stop to put stuff in his mom's garage. And that's when I had a phone call. I had to do a pre-screening thing to see if I qualify. So next Friday, I'm going back to school. I'm going to ULowell. That's where they're having it. It's like a 3-hour thing for like, $200, and it's like
testing new gas smells. Like, we're toying with raspberry.
I think you heard part of the conversation. The guy's like, part of the questions is like, how often do you watch the news? I'm like, enough where I know the government's trying to take my stove, and the guy just busted up laughing. The guy's like, okay, so you do watch the news, and and it's like, yeah, because we have the way it works here is we have natural gas from National Grid and then electric from National Grid as well. But it's one company, but we get 2 bills. It's a separate thing. But anyways, so yeah, like I said,
we have EverSource for electric.
I don't know if you qualify for the research study, but I put in the good word. They have another one. So yeah, so I finally got into a Division I school, at least for 3 hours next week. So that's.
I hope you pass the audition.
And it's funny because I had texted out. I didn't even put this on the rundown, but really quickly, I said I found out a couple weeks ago when I took the little kid to his field trip. It was a citywide 6th grade field trip to the ULowell women's basketball game, and I saw a flyer that it was great. Oh, it literally was a lot of fun. It was a lot and great for them because I'm not being funny when I say this. They play at UMaine. It was a Division I women's NCAA game. They usually don't play in front of 2,000 people. So it maybe a tournament or something. So it was nice at a random Wednesday afternoon, but there was a flyer that coming Saturday was UMass-Lowell, Mass. Oh fuck, I can't remember who they played, but it was Star Wars night, and I didn't want to tell the little guy. So, but about an hour before, I said to him, I'm like, hey, Squish, do you want to go see the college hockey game? Because Joe went to a game with us last year, and it's fun. The look of contempt of no, like the audacity that I would ask him such a question, like, how dare you, sir? And I'm like, it's Star Wars night. Cut to, there he is with his homemade Rebel Alliance shirt, like he did. His mom made him. He has a $300 Jedi outfit, but he loves his homemade, his lightsaber. And we were there, and he had the best time, and he was really impressed. We're sitting on the other side of the stadium, but college hockey is just a great environment. But a fucking college band and they did, and they weren't just playing like the title theme and the Emperor's March and the Duel of Fate. They played a song, and I know it, but I didn't know the name. And he's like, oh, this is when Anakin. I'm like, okay. So, it's 80% attendance, 75% attendance, but we walked over and we sat for the next period right next to the band. And nice. I put a clip out there. Oh, and I leaned, we were right next to them, and I leaned over during a break, and there was a couple of the brass players, and I'm like, how many songs did you guys learn for this? And the girl, she was such a sweetie. She's going through the book. It's like, here's the regular songs of the band, and counting the number of different Star Wars music. And there was 14 different songs that they had.
So coincidence. I think tomorrow night is Star Wars night at the old Crypto.
I
think you get the free Grogu mug if you're the first among the first 10,000 in the building.
So who has Taylor's tickets?
I have no idea. They're playing Arizona, so not surprised.
That's when you do. And it was so much fun, and they had the and you guys have heard of it. It's a 501 Allegiance, a 501. It's that Star Wars group. They're internationally known. Dude, they're amazing. And it's so funny. Jon Favreau uses them in The Mandalorian.
They're like a troop of cosplayers who dress up as stormtroopers.
And all kinds of stormtroopers, but it's absolutely Star Wars movie level caliber cosplaying. And it's funny because they didn't have the budget. Like, somebody had suggested it to them. There's a shot at the end of season 1 of The Mandalorian where it's 300 stormtroopers. It's like they're surrounded. You're not getting the fuck out of here. And they're like, oh, how do we pare this down? How do we? And somebody said, it's call those guys. It's you don't have to.
Yeah, they bring it's a BYOC. Bring your own costume.
And
I wonder, my old employer had one of those Star Wars nights, and there was they just had this troop of people, and I was wondering where they got it. I wonder if it's the same kind of thing.
And with the Mandalorian, so these guys got the SAG minimum, to show up, but they're not paying you to travel. But there are people in this Legion who drove down from Sacramento, came in from Phoenix, came in, from all these places, and dude, you get to be in an actual right, and so rarely in life do you have a win-win. And so these people came. My little guy's favorite Star Wars thing is Star Wars Rebels, and it did well when it came out, but it didn't set the world on fire like The Mandalorian did. But it started to pick up traction over the last couple of years, and there was a couple characters from that, and I mean just absolutely alien creatures with but the makeup was it was great. He just had, and it was great because then it turned out the game was it was one of those games before it was okay, but then you had 4 lead changes inside 7 minutes. Yeah. They came back from the home team came back from a 2-goal deficit, and they're up by 1, and then they give up 2 goals, and he didn't want to leave. It was such a great, it was. Dude, it was a great night.
Because a long time. So whenever either episode 6 or 7 came out, my old employer had this thing where they got somebody from the ILM, right, Industrial Light and Magic, to come over, and then they did a kind of a making of the movie kind of a thing. A lot of the technical stuff, for that movie. It was, kind of a cool thing. No cameras allowed, so I don't have any footage of it. But
Well, then it didn't happen. If you didn't put it on
well-
Snapchat, if it's not on Snapchat, Biff, it didn't happen.
I actually have photos of the people though, but but not of the actual event, the event inside. So
Snapchat also deletes after 24 hours.
I don't know.
Is that what-
Oh, Wacky old Santa. I just want to touch on a couple political things just really quick because the State of the Union was 2 weeks ago. I'm not getting into the buffoonery. I couldn't even take it. I ended up telling a couple friends and putting a couple things on mute on Twitter for a few days. Yeah, we all saw the same picture of the buffoon yelling. But I just want to give a shout out to how Dark Biden played when he made the reference about hey, not all of them, but some of the people on the other side of the aisle want to cut Social Security. People yeah. And he basically brokers a deal for the mic as Mike McCarthy is trying to shut his people up. And he's like,
Kevin McCarthy.
Is like, so we have a deal. It's like, and then the next day it's like, he put up with the buffoonery. He knew it, but he baited them. He put he's like, hey, I'm not saying it's all of you. I'm not even saying it's just a couple. No. And I think it's Mike Lee who was screaming, and I saw the side-by-side thing on every news channel and on every social media, him yelling that it's like, no one's cutting social media. Cut to a campaign speech he gave like a year ago saying, we're going to sunset this thing. This thing's going away in 5 years. We're done with these entitlements. It's like, anyways, but Biden did that. And Biff, you're a scientist guy. You went to a science college with a lot of sciencey people. What the hell is with all the shooting down of weather balloons and a real actual spy balloon? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so the funny thing I thought was that apparently they had a more precision radar, I want to say, that was detecting more things. So I'm thinking, so you guys you had the slacker radar before, so things were just floating by all the time, and now that they had this big thing that people could just see, we better tune up our radar. And, oh my God, look at all these things floating around.
Right. It's kind of like we finally after 20 years of wearing the old glasses, we finally went to get our prescription upgraded, and they're like, whoa, you're that ugly? That kind of thing. So yes, you're right. It was kind of like, then now I think there's going to be a slow moving process to maybe change the regulations as to how these balloons are allowed to fly around. There's so many weird, unidentified objects in the air that, kind of fly in that little stratosphere.
My personal feeling on it is, you know what? I care a lot less about those things. You know what I really care about, at least in California, is getting some kind of control over those stupid drones. Yeah. And the reason why I give a crap about drones in California is because these freaking asshats fly their drones during California wildfire, and when they detect a drone in the air, they have to freaking ground the aircraft that's
that's coming to put out the fire.
Oh my God.
So when the Jewish space laser makes it fire in California, as we've heard, no, that's awful. I did not know about that. Yeah. I mean, the first one though, the Chinese spy balloon. Yeah. It's sad that it's like, all the GQPers taking pictures of themselves with their guns, I'm going to shoot this thing down, and then it turns out it's like, there was 3 during the last administration that, the Pentagon's like, nothing happened, so we didn't want to worry people. And then, but it's interesting that China's
So I'm kind of wondering, so what do they think they're able to see with these, these balloons, right? That people just can't see already otherwise.
By the way, I do want to mention one thing. Maybe I'm projecting or something. I'm putting something out there that's not real, but I noticed that I'm not. How do I say this? The news lately has been a lot freer, or seems a lot freer, to say Chinese spy balloon. The phrase Chinese spy balloon kind of rolls off the tongue amidst all this sort of anti-Asian sentiment. This is the one thing that they're okay with, Chinese spy balloon.
Well, it's exactly what it
is, a Chinese spy balloon.
So Biff, to answer your question, if you really want to know the answer to your question, and it's not a rhetorical question, Biff, I am happy to have my dad on, because my dad, I asked that question. Buckle in. You know,
and the reason why I say that is because I think that if they were going over certain protective, these certain areas that of concern, I think the the reaction would have been different. Is what I'm saying, right? I think it's that because it is an air balloon and they could track it and they don't have to go through real whatever to essentially make sure it doesn't go anywhere bad. It's very different than say like a unmanned spy, a spy plane. Right?
No, but.
Right?
But as far as what can you see that you can't see with satellite and stuff like that, my dad may or may not have had government clearance that got me pulled out of school in the 7th grade and questioned by the Men in Black. Okay. He still is like a renowned physicist, and he's worked on projects that. It wasn't until he hit like the late 70s when he wouldn't retire, and he's still working on it, and he couldn't talk about it. But he got to the point where watching the Patriots game and where maybe that 4th beer in, and he would turn to me. The first part of the conversation started in his head. Oh, so then what we did, it's like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, and he's told me stuff that I shouldn't know. And but there is a reason why they have those and what they can do that satellites can't, that my dad really broke down. At the same time, of course he's not a big, Biden fan, it's like, he used to be a Democrat until like, a former Democrat. Anyways, but he was talking about, all the bullshit about you got to shoot it down, and he was saying the same thing before I heard it on the news. It's like, A, you don't know what the fuck is in there. You know what I mean? Right, yeah. 2, there's no way of knowing. It's like, pop a balloon, at a party and see, and tell me which wall it's going to hit or not going to hit. You know what I mean? It's one of those
it's
things.
Also a balloon with a satellite attached,
right?
Or something, or some machinery that will go down.
Well, that's what he's saying. You have no idea where it's going. Oh, if we pop it on this side, it will fall that way. No, you're not chopping a fucking tree down in the forest. And then he said the other thing is, because this is his wheelhouse. Radar was his thing. Yeah. Radar, laser tracking, like that, and he was the spy versus spy. It's like, oh, they came out with this. This is what we're coming out with to neutralize this. And as we neutralize this is what we're going to go forward with on our side. That was his job for 50 years. And so he was saying that. He goes, any of the stuff that they've transmitted out of there, we know exactly. And he said, he goes, and it's now funny. A week later, I heard a program today on NPR saying what my dad told me a week ago. It's like somebody who was a former Pentagon, official was saying, the longer we didn't shoot it down, the more shit we knew about what they know and how they know it. And it's like if we shut it down, we reverse engineer it, we find out a lot of shit. But being able to track it in real time, and the guy on the radio didn't say it for sure, but he kind of alluded to it. It's like, well, one of the reasons we didn't shoot the other 3 down is because we didn't want to. We didn't want them to know that we knew they were doing this, because we knew everything it was tracking back to them. And their real-time data, we had it when they had it. So we knew, and that's everything that my dad was saying. It's like, you can 100% jam everything going out. Everything that they've already sent. It's like, it'd be interesting to see, where they are AI-wise, as far as it's flight navigation, and have they made by reverse engineering at that point. But my dad, who again, not a big Biden fan, was 100%. It's like, no, you don't fucking shoot it down now. You should have shot it down. He was mad. If you were going to shoot it down, you shoot it down before it got into Alaska airspace. Right. That's where my dad said you should have shot it down. But my dad's like, there's a really good chance they didn't want to. Right. Hey, what do they know? Where is this balloon going? Do they know where these silos are? Do they know where these other sites are? Let's shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
And figure out what they know. And that's again coming from my dad. And then
they're playing possum.
Yeah. And so my dad was, so I gave it the absolute, and my dad's great. He can dumb things down for me in a way that I can understand. This guy who truly is, and you guys know his protege, Ross, former guest, who's another rocket scientist from Harvard. A few years ago, they decided, we solved this math problem 30 years ago, but my dad woke up one night, Biff, and he didn't like how they solved it. And he spent 2 days digging through the attic, get the old one. He called Ross. He's like, do you want to work on this project? Well, when they started working on it in the mid 80s as a side project or whatever, they solved it, and they solved it correctly. But my dad thought there's an easier way. Computing has gotten better, and there's softwares to help crunch certain numbers. So they get that software. My dad realizes a problem in the software, writes a patch, calls the company and says, hey, your software was supposed to do this. It didn't. Here's the patch to fix it. And the company was like, what do we owe you from that? It's like, make sure you don't send out a next software, get your shit together because people are depending on this click. That's my dad, and my mom on the other hand is like, hey, asshole.
Yeah, we could use, money.
People get paid to do that shit. I cannot tell you how many times that's happened where my dad's done something and my mom's like, oh yeah, the people who used to work for you who still call you and ask for help live in much bigger houses than us, but he's a science for science guy. But anyways, I because a lot of Caltech guys. I before we get to Japanese stories, and I don't know if you have one, Biff. So I do, but there was a comical theft in England last week. I'm stealing the headline. England's
extravagant.
Extravagant thief. Somebody stole a Kinder Egg semi-truck with 200,000 Cadbury cream eggs. Look, I'm not pointing fingers. Biff, where were you last Tuesday afternoon around 3? How great is that? The guy, it was one of those things from a movie. They stopped the truck on a highway, took the driver out, and thought they were going to be able to get away. What's the street value in Wales on how do you unload 200,000 Cadbury
But
cream
I mean,
eggs?
to be fair, like, didn't somebody hijack a maple syrup truck in Quebec or something like that? So, right?
Yeah, but that was a bet. That actually it was the Canadian reboot of Smokey and the Bandit. They, it was their Coors Light, thing. No, it's funny because management a few years ago, it's one of her fun running jokes. I started a new diet. How's it going? Not good. I had eggs for breakfast. Oh, scrambled, fried, Cadbury. Anyways, but so in Japan this last week.
Yeah, you said that thing.
Yeah. Did you look that up?
You know what? It's kind of so I looked it up in my source language. And the guy is a known guy, it seems like, but that particular incident didn't seem to really cause too much of a blip in terms of, so it might be one of those things where, hey, somebody just picked it up and said, hey, it's a slow news day. We just, nobody's gonna, reverse check this.
You want to bring Joe up to speed and I'll start talking about what we're talking about.
I think all I can remember is that like there's this Yale professor who happens to be a Japanese national, and I guess he was talking about the just emerging problem in Japan, not just Japan, but everywhere. But in Japan, it's really, really, kind of pronounced, where you have this aging population, right? And so he basically, I guess, somewhere alleged that you should just, really the solution is for these, elderly people to kill themselves, including, performing, ritualistic, seppuku, which is basically the people here as harakiri. It's the same thing, right? It's basically disemboweling yourself and all that stuff. And so apparently blah blah blah, and this hit a nerve, and it's like, yeah, whatever. But it's kind of thing. I didn't see much of it, so I don't know what the deal is. So yeah.
Okay, because I had heard the story, Joe, and it's like, oh, Yale professor All-Star Tommy suggesting old Japanese people kill themselves in order to keep their entitlement programs going. This is gonna make for a fun conversation Friday night. Mr. Safety School and Biff. It was cross pollinating. So that was a cry. I didn't give Joe a heads up on doing a self-indulgent theater. I don't know if you wanted to. I'll just play an old one unless you've been, while unpacking limitless boxes, you've come up with a a self-indulgent theater that you want to throw on us unprepared?
No, I don't have anything planned. If you have a request in the next 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Paul Lynde doing the Gettysburg Address.
407 years ago, our forefathers brought to us a new nation. I wish they, forefathers. Oh, it sounds like a party to me.
Oh my God.
Not a dry eye in the house.
All right,
Not a dry eye in the house. Could have used it on the box.
Can you the way Charlie wrote it?
You
You can fool
video.
some of the people most of the time. Most of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Well, you keep saying it wrong. Last quote I got was that you said you fool all the people all the time. Like, you know.
Maybe you and Martha should go to the theater.
Now, how about a play?
There's and that
That's
is
a
for
Bob Newhart thing that we're doing.
audience of one.
Two.
So no video game use on my end, except the fact I did buy. Took the boys to Blaze Pizza on the way to jiu-jitsu the other day, and as a surprise, while they were waiting for the pizza, I walked. It was inside the mall. I went to GameStop, and I bought the oldest one, Gotham Knights.
Okay.
Which I haven't played. I don't want to play it unless there might be a situation coming up where management has to go to Chicago for a week. Okay. And then it's like, because, she works so much and stuff like that. We don't have a lot of time. The boys have 1,000 things going on. I don't want to get into a game like that unless I can take a weekend.
Time.
Yeah. I can take 12, 14 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday and really kind of enjoy it and get into it without completely abandoning my wife and children. But Joe, look, he has his priorities straight. Has it been a solid week you've been in the new place?
About a week, yeah.
About a week. What did you get done this week, Joe? What did you get done today?
Oh, this afternoon I rushed home from work and I started, you know what?
Run home, Charlie. Run home as fast as you can.
No, I decided, you know what? I do have the crate of retro video game consoles in my basement because I knew that at some point I was going to try to reassemble my gaming habitat, my retro gaming habitat. So yeah, I started to unbubble wrap all of the old Nintendos and Segas and all that stuff, and yeah, it's in a section. It's kind of laid out. I have an idea, and I'm also regretting giving away that TV. That was in the basement. Because, A, I could still use it. B, even though my mother has a similarly sized retro, like old TV, the Sony Turnitron, it's 32 inches. It's 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And I don't have movers.
Yeah.
I have me. Now it's like, okay, if I want that, I gotta lug it my ass. Like I gotta lug it my own.
Well, yeah, you got me. You got to take me to Chipotle's again. Oh, by the way, a little sidebar: the Chipotle's that Joe and I went to. What was the established landmark that is now Everett Folklore, Joe?
No, it's not Everett. It's Medford, Massachusetts.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare I give out facts? So it's right next door to the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru that was featured in the Ben Affleck Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl ad with Jennifer.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's at the drive-thru and people are like surprised to see him, and then Jennifer Lopez comes up.
Yeah, that ad wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was a cute ad.
Which segues straight into our next item, right?
100. You see what I did there, man? I'm getting good at this. But no, it's fun because when we were walking, that Dunkin' Donuts has been there since my mom, called that neighborhood home, and it's like, oh, that's where it was. Anyways, yeah, I did not, and
look, that one. There are many Dunkin' Donuts drive-thrus and
well, there's that one with that kid selling fireworks. But of course, I did not watch the Super Bowl. And management really was excited about Rihanna, and she did tape it. And by the time it caught up, I saw a third of the commercials kind of in real time, but like a half hour late. Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? Thoughts on the Super Bowl and commercials?
Well, there's no we don't need to talk about the game.
I saw up to the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
and then I just zonked out. And of course, the fourth quarter is where all the action was.
It was all right, but I mean, it was kind of a not. Well, it was a fine finish, but it was one of those. Yeah, whatever. But you know what? Did you see the Workday commercial with all those Paul Stanley, Joan Jett, Ozzy Osbourne, Billy Idol?
Hello, I'm Oswald.
Yeah, Oswald.
Yeah,
So,
it was basically the Workaday.
So that's the product that I work on. So I actually knew about it before the game. On Friday at our big team meeting, I said, hey, if you guys are watching the big game, and you don't want to spoil it, don't do it. But the Workday ad is great.
That's awesome.
It's great, and if you're not gonna watch the game, go check it out on YouTube, and so it was a great hit.
I mean, yeah. So the Workday ad was basically, the premise was that Paul Stanley was pleading with. Do we want to give away the premise?
Yeah. Dude, it's a week past.
Yeah. So Paul Stanley's at like a rock concert, and he turns, his back's to the camera, facing the crowd, and then he turns around to the camera, and he goes, "Yeah, hey, corporate business guys who keep calling themselves rock stars. You stop, because you're not a rock star." And then it cuts to like, was it Joan Jett, right?
There was like Joan Jett goes, "Oh, I did blah blah blah," and then Billy Idol goes, "I destroyed 1,600 hotel rooms." They talk about
Oswald, Ozzy
Osbourne,
Ozzy Osbourne's like, I did my fair share of bad things.
Bad things, and your share of bad things.
Yeah. Management, saw the one still that they released of Ben Stiller as Zoolander, and then to parody the gas station fight thing, which is. It's her top 5 moment in movie history. She lives. She lives for that. And then Steve Martin doing the commercial.
Great.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like retro 90s. Like it's kind of like, hey, I remember that. I remember you. Alicia Silverstone, Clueless. Yeah.
But it was great. Because I just watched Breaking Bad, like a couple weeks ago, that commercial for me, it's like I wouldn't have got it. So my timing was great. Just in time. So yeah, already covered that. So I will say Monday I did a couple open mics after the Super Bowl, and a couple people, their whole sets were about it. So what little I know is I guess the turf was really bad. Yeah. I guess there was a lot of slipping and sliding, and people were like, this is.
Basically, they painted on the turf, and then people were slipping on the paint.
Right, especially the Eagles. Right. Like the Eagles weren't as prepared as the Chiefs were.
And then I guess, and one guy, I didn't see the game, so I have no opinion on this. Says, "Oh, the end of the game is coming up. It's the last few minutes, and their biggest advertiser is Allstate, and their big spokesperson is Mahomes, and he gets a gift of a phantom hold that takes him from having to punt the ball to giving him a new first down, and they go."
That was a bad call.
It was a bad call at the end of a game that a lot of people
also maybe some people considered it a makeup call.
Right. So there was that, and I don't miss that I didn't see it. You guys watching anything new? Any new recommendations?
Just waiting for The Mandalorian.
I started watching Shrinking on Apple TV Plus with Harrison Ford and and who started? Oh God, I see him. Really tall guy was in all those. No. If I say his name,
Adam Driver.
No. From like 20 years ago, was big, like tall guy. He was on Freaks and Geeks. He was one of the guys who broke out of Freaks and Geeks.
Jason Segel?
Yeah.
Jason Segel.
And it's his show. And it's funny because I saw him on an interview. Like they pick up the show. They love it. They're like, well, what's your wish list? Who would you like for this? He's like, I don't know. I was like, maybe Harrison Ford. And they're like, okay, we're asking him. He's like, okay. Really said yes, and Harrison Ford is great. It's called Shrinking. It's on Apple TV Plus. Highly recommend. Okay, wrapping it up. Parenting tips. What do you boys got?
I got nothing. What you got, Joe?
I forgot what in the move I lost my kids. I don't know where they are. So anybody out there who's within earshot and that knows where they.
here's my two parenting tips. I'll make up for you guys because I'm twice the parents of both of you. It's February vacation, and I have the boys signed up for so much shit. They can't wait for school to start.
Are they also doing the National Grid survey?
You know, oh my God! If the fucking mustache would not keep falling off the little guy, we could pull it off. But no, I seriously, it's like we found out again. City of Lowell is awesome. They are running a lifeguard camp that is a real thing. It's like an hour on Saturday, 10 hours on Monday, 7 hours of rest. But it comes with full CPR certification, full first aid certification. And if you pass the course, you can get a job at the city pool for $16 an hour this summer. And if you don't pass on Friday, you can come back on Saturday and retake the test again because you really want that. So my oldest guy is looking forward to it, but it's not. But he's going to feel like he helped Joe move out of the Lyceum by the end of next week. So my parenting tip is, you know what? Make them not look forward to vacation by scheduling the shit out of them so that they look forward to going, that they see school as a haven. And that's my parenting. That's my parenting.
Well, I'll let you guys wrap it up because I got to go.
All right, Biff, I banish you. You are no longer allowed to be on this particular broadcast of the Carnival Personnel Podcast. He can't even hear me anymore. Oh, man, this is like, it's kind of liberating. You know, Jacques not talking and Biff isn't listening. Hey, I'm just kind of here on my own. Man, you know, I can just sort of just say what I want. You know, this is now you can get the real Joe, man. You can get like unfiltered Joe. You know, like an unfiltered Camel cigarette. Who, by the way, is our sponsor this week. Camel cigarettes. Remember cigarette commercials? Well, I'm bringing them back. Camel Unfiltered. Yeah, brought to you by Joe Unfiltered. Oh, yes. You're in Joe country now. Let's go to the phones. Line 7, we have Jerry in Montana. Jerry, you have a beef with a certain race of people. Go ahead. I'll let you talk. Oh, my. No, Jerry, I do not agree. And if my listeners could hear what you just said, you would be in a world of shit. And I'm sorry I had to use that language here, everybody. You know what? Let's take a commercial break. Let's go to our fine sponsors this week. Again, Camel Unfiltered. Camel cigarettes, you know, for children? Really? Wow. Who knew? They're branching out. I guess you know, cigarette ads are available on podcasts now. At least this podcast. I assume it's a real. Like they promised they were gonna, you know, send me money to do this read. I got it from a Chinese spy balloon. I like the term Chinese spy balloon. Everybody's saying Chinese spy balloon. Anyways. Tune in next week where our sponsor will be a Chinese spy balloon. And on that note, don't forget